There is a growing sense of unease regarding the new Netflix documentary on Diddy. Many viewers feel the editing became noticeably cautious the moment the narrative touched on truly uncomfortable territory. Adding to the tension, Katt Williams has resurfaced, and fans believe his recent comments validate their suspicions. The current conversation centers on the claim that 7 major celebrities, not just minor figures, but household names, were omitted from the final cut. This has sparked a massive reaction because Katt Williams hinted months ago that while certain truths would eventually surface, specific elite circles would still be protected or handled lightly by the media. Katt is now weighing in directly on the Netflix situation, and he isn't holding back. He is openly challenging the idea that the documentary provides a complete account, suggesting instead that certain powerful individuals were intentionally kept out of the spotlight.
20 years, won't do an interview. Nobody's ever talked to her, and she's never been interviewed anywhere. And now, understand, I'm not talking about one person. What I just told you applies to 7 people. How they all end up with that. That's part of what you get. I came in this business saying I was going to expose. When I talked about Michael Jackson, when I talked about R. Kelly, they canceled me for these things because why would you talk about another black dude? Race is not where the line is drawn. It's God's side and the other side. And we don't care nothing about the other side. Period. Period. All of these big dick deviants is all catching hell in 2024. It's up for all of them. It don't matter if you Diddy or whoever you is. TG Jakes, any of them. All lies will be exposed. That's all. And anyone who takes that the wrong way, know why they take it the wrong way. The truth.
Remember when he went on Club Shay Shay and said the lies were eventually going to be exposed? People are looking at this rollout now and saying that's exactly what he meant. In this video, we're breaking down the 7 names people believe were either left out or barely mentioned, why those names may have been handled carefully, and how their connections to Diddy continue to be discussed even when the documentary doesn't explicitly spell them out. There's also another claim circulating, that behind the scenes, there was pressure over which names could be included and how they would be framed. That's not something we can confirm, but it does align with what many say happens when a story gets too close to powerful circles. Because in this industry, the same pattern keeps repeating. Some names make it onto the screen, and some don't. And many viewers believe those missing names are the real reason this documentary feels so controlled. Now, let's get into the list. Before we go any further, I want to be clear. I'm not making the cheap move of dragging obvious A-list targets into this just for clicks. You already know which superstar names the internet loves to throw into every rumor storm. And I'm not presenting gossip as proof. We're sticking to what's been said publicly and what can actually be discussed without turning this into a fan fiction circus. This really starts in 2024, when Katt Williams went on Club Shay Shay and dropped what sounded like a warning. He said Diddy loves that party lifestyle, and that the smartest thing anyone can learn is how to say no. Then he doubled down on the bigger message that the truth was going to surface and the lies were going to be exposed. At the time, people treated it like entertainment. Now, with everything that's happening, many viewers are looking back and thinking maybe Katt wasn't just talking. During that run, he also named multiple public figures and framed it as a truth problem, basically saying that the people who can't stand the truth usually know exactly why it bothers them. Whether you agree or not, it set the tone that something was coming. Fast forward to now, 50 Cent is connected to a Netflix documentary release titled Diddy, The Reckoning. Part of the hype is that it's presented as including behind-the-scenes material from that legal period, along with allegations that go beyond typical celebrity scandal coverage. Once it dropped, the legal pushback reportedly came fast. The talk is that Diddy's team challenged how certain footage was obtained or used and sent formal warnings to Netflix, claiming it wasn't authorized. Netflix still moved forward, which is why people aren't treating this as just another documentary. They're treating it as a battle over who controls the story. Now, I'm not going to lock in exact court numbers or timelines like they're guaranteed, because online information is messy and legal situations change quickly. The point is that the pressure is real, and many people believe this isn't over. You're seeing major claims about lawsuits, possible additional charges, and serious allegations being thrown around, including mentions involving minors. I'm not repeating those as facts, because that's exactly the kind of thing that gets exaggerated online, and it's far too serious to treat casually. But what it does show is this. People believe the situation could expand, and when a case gets this big, the internet starts looking for a much larger web behind it. That's why the leak talk keeps resurfacing as well. Claims about tapes or recordings that could allegedly implicate other celebrities. Again, none of that is confirmed, but it shows how the narrative is shifting from one individual to an entire network. And speaking of Katt, he recently made a joke that many people are treating as a quiet confirmation of what he's been hinting at this whole time.
Say that again, people. 27 years, 4 years. Meanwhile, they tried to give me 4 years, but 2 blunts I had no intention of smoking in the first place. Same 4 years. I don't give a fuck. Being an ass-picking devil worshiper is not against the law. They put that man on a whole RICO because they thought he was f***ing for China. They said, bring out the 9 niggas walked out. That ain't even get the law. Go on and get you found. That man liked this so much as his punishment. They sent him to the place with the most. I ain't finna say.
I get it, it sounds wild, but the way people are interpreting it, Katt wasn't just cracking jokes for laughs. Many see it as him doubling down on the same message he's been pushing all along. Some parts of the story get aired out, while other parts are quietly protected. Now let's get into the 7 names people keep bringing up. First up, Snoop Dogg. Yes, Snoop. And before anyone twists this, nobody is saying Snoop is guilty of anything. His name keeps coming up simply because he and Diddy have overlapped for decades through music, business, events, and shared celebrity circles. That kind of long-standing history is enough for the internet to start asking questions, especially when a documentary feels selective about who it focuses on. So why do people think Snoop wasn't touched in the documentary? A big reason is a creator named Ally Carter, who's been pushing this angle for years. She has claimed that Snoop is more connected and more insulated than most people realize.
Everybody knew that Snoop Dogg, not again, mentioned him in December of 2020, but everybody beat the hell out of me. Screw you, that can't be true. What the hell do I know, right? And then recently it just came out again that Snoop Dogg got accused of trafficking children. And what did everybody do? Ooh, Snoop Dogg is at the halftime. I'm going to the halftime. But we canceled Dr. Seuss and Jemima. Nobody mad. Nobody. Super Bowl had this. They were dripping down from the letters. The LVI. I know, but that's fine. It's fine. Let's go to the game. Make some hot wings. It's fine. It'll pass. It'll pass, right? It's a phase. It's just a phase. But oh no. Tell somebody that plastic straws are coming back and throw a fit. Let a convict get arrested. Somebody put a knee on a convict's neck and it's over. The neck of it. Crickets. Crickets. Nothing. Everything.
She's been saying this since around 2020. Every time she brings it up, she gets slammed, called a liar, told to be quiet, but she keeps going anyway. Now, this is where we stay responsible. Carter has made extremely serious allegations, including claims involving minors. I'm not repeating those accusations as facts. That's not something you put out there without verified evidence. What matters for this video is the reaction pattern people point to. The argument online goes like this. If someone were truly radioactive, you'd expect them to lose major platforms, major deals, and major stages. Instead, people point out that Snoop has continued to land massive mainstream moments, including the Super Bowl halftime show. That contrast is what some use to argue that he's treated differently. To be clear, being booked for a huge event is not proof of wrongdoing. It's simply the kind of detail the internet uses to fuel the idea of protected figures. And then, of course, you get the symbolism crowd. Carter even tried to read hidden meaning into the Super Bowl visuals, the LVI graphics, the staging as if it were some coded message. That's not evidence. That's interpretation. But it shows how quickly online commentary can turn into a full-blown storyline. At this point, the real question isn't what's proven. The question is why certain names consistently spark these conversations, and why documentaries often avoid them unless everything is completely airtight. So why do people think 50 Cent didn't go there with Snoop in the documentary? The simplest explanation is risk. Snoop is a legacy name with deep industry ties, and if you don't have airtight proof and full clearance, you don't put that on a major platform. storm. That's why the internet labels certain figures as untouchable, not because anything is proven, but because that's how people interpret a careful edit. Now let's move on to Kevin Hart, because this one plays out differently. Kevin has been asked about the Diddy situation before, but his responses are always tightly controlled, like he knows one wrong line could instantly become a headline. And people connect that careful tone to his history of being around certain industry spaces during that era.
Come here, don't sit on the bed at night, no homo, no, just don't get close to the bed, don't get close, but it's just like, yo, we want to thank you for hosting the thing, man, it's been a pleasure. You didn't have to do it and you did it.
No, I definitely didn't have to do it. I definitely didn't have to. First and foremost, I'm not getting in the bed. Shouts out to him and what he did. I'm just gonna, if we can, let's just put the camera a little this way, just so we're not, I don't want my shot to even, I don't want it to come close to the bed at all. I should look like he fresh off a goddamn plane. I should.
Fresh off the guard stage. That's my brother right here from day one. We used to wake up and, damn, pause, but like just back in the days when he was like 10 and I was a little bit older, his older brother, we used to fight over the Frosted Flakes. You know what I'm saying? Before pause was invented. You know what I'm saying? But it's my brother for real. We used to actually wrestle off of the Frosted Flakes because he used to always get up early with me. Now he's one of the richest stars in the world. And
What the did Puff just say? Nobody's gonna acknowledge this but me. Puff just said we used to wrestle over the Frosted Flakes, and we're streaming live. That was stupid. Listen, that was fucking stupid. Listen,
we having a good time, yo. Oh, your Usher made it in the. Hey, yo.
I'm a thug. At the end of the day, I kill niggas, man. No, listen, at the end of the day, I kill.
You'll hear stories about those old party weekend environments and behind-the-scenes camp talk, and fans love pointing to viral clips as if they're receipts, even though those clips rarely show the full context. What really reignited the conversation, though, was the BET Awards. Kevin didn't just throw out quick, disposable jokes. He leaned into the topic of after-parties and essentially said, "That's where things get messy." He followed it with, "We learning a lot about people, ain't we?" And then capped it off by telling the crowd, "God is good all the time." On the surface, it was classic Kevin. Quick punchlines, then move on.
Somebody to invite him in. Hey, don't do it. Okay? We all saw the movie Sinners. Don't let his here. So he can bite somebody. So he can bite Playboy Cardi again, okay? Playboy Cardi definitely been bit. Something happened. Playboy Cardi's been bit. I know he has. Nobody let Kanye in. No. Tonight, I will do my part. Everybody will get flowers. I'll do my part to make sure that I put us on a high pedestal, man. Also, I'm gonna do my part. I'm shutting down the idea of after parties. No after parties tonight, okay? None. Take your home after this. That's why I did it on a Monday. I did it on a Monday. People got to go to work tomorrow. No after parties. That's where it's slippery at them after parties. Okay? We're learning a lot about people, ain't we? We're learning a lot. God is good all the time. Kurt, that makes it right. Whatever I just said goes away. Funny.
What made people pause was what he emphasized next: no after parties that night. And the timing mattered. A Monday show naturally shuts down the entire stay out all night culture because most people have to be up the next day. Whether it was comedy, planning, or a quiet message, it didn't feel accidental. Then, as always, the internet tried to twist it into something uglier. Orlando Brown has made a lot of extreme claims over the years, including explicit allegations about Kevin that have never been verified.
Took $50 million to unversion his whole.
Can you explain a little bit?
No, I just told you.
I'm not repeating that allegation as fact. It's the kind of rumor that spreads quickly because it's shocking, not because it's proven. So whether you believe Orlando or not, the main point here is this: Kevin's jokes started getting replayed like signals. And once the internet decides a joke is a hint, it runs with it. People say Kevin gets treated carefully in this conversation for one main reason: he's been in the industry long enough to understand what goes on behind closed doors. That doesn't prove he did anything, but it explains why fans assume he's seen more than he'll ever say on camera. And when you're that big of a brand, a documentary isn't going to pull you into unverified chaos unless it has absolutely bulletproof receipts. That's why people believe his name was handled lightly, not because of favoritism, but because it would be a liability tornado. Now let's talk about MaSe. This one frustrates a lot of people because MaSe wasn't some distant figure. During the bad boy era, he was right there. Music, business, the inner circle, the entire machine. If anyone had real first-hand perspective from that time, it would be him. What people can't get past is how quiet he's remained. Fans often point to how long it took him to get out of his contract situation, years of paperwork, years of fighting to straighten things out. And even after he finally got free, he still didn't go full scorched earth publicly. That silence is what fuels suspicion, because people expect someone with that much history to have more to say.
No, this is freedom paper.
What's up, Mace?
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, baby.
Marvin is back in the building. What up, Batman?
What up, Mace? How you doing, boy?
Better than I look.
What's up, Mace? How you been, man?
I'm chilling, man. All my cars still work. Just the Puff doing good stuff, you know?
Yeah, every once in a while, you got to do something good.
There's also that V103 moment people keep referencing on air. Diddy tried to frame it as if everything had been settled, like MaSe was good now and free to do what he wanted. But it's MaSe's reaction that everyone focuses on. He looked nervous, surprised, almost overly grateful, like he didn't expect it to play out that way. MaSe even said outright that it took him about 10 years to get the paperwork sorted. He sounded genuinely shocked that the publishing situation was finally resolved. Then he joked about it, saying something along the lines of, "Yeah, Puff used to do good things sometimes. That's why the moment sticks." When someone who was around for decades seems surprised by a basic, fair outcome, it tells people the history behind it wasn't simple. So why do people think MaSe didn't get a real spotlight in the documentary? Because his silence changes the entire story. If you center MaSe, the first question becomes, why is someone who was that close to the era still so careful? And once you open that door, the documentary stops being a recap and turns into a deep dive into pressure, old business ties, and what people won't say out loud. That's why many viewers believe the safer move was to leave him out, not because it proves anything, but because MaSe would raise questions the documentary probably didn't want to carry. Now we have to talk about Meek Mill. And yes, this one gets messy fast. Meek has been around top-level industry circles for years, and rumor culture has attached his name to various stories for a long time, mostly whispers, nothing solid. Then Orlando Brown surfaced again with another vulgar line designed to go viral.
Out saying that he'll pay somebody $100 grand to investigate that he has nothing to do with anything with Diddy.
You can't take back what your butthole received.
I'm not repeating it because it's explicit, unverified, and turns the entire segment into shock content. But that's how this pattern works. One outrageous quote gets clipped, and suddenly Meek's name is trending again. Then it escalated with an alleged audio clip that began circulating online. Some people claimed it involved Meek, while others alleged the second voice was Diddy. Jaguar Wright also weighed in, saying she believed the voice sounded like Diddy.
Hey, real rap.
You think that audio that they put out was real?
Yeah, that was Nikki put that out there. That Nikki recorded that at the freak off in the Calabasas. She been waiting to drop that shit on Meek. She just wasn't gonna tell nobody it was Diddy. But now that Diddy out there, why not?
But that's still her interpretation. The more important part is what happened next. The clip spread everywhere. People argued about it nonstop, and then it started disappearing from platforms. That doesn't confirm anything, but it's exactly why the internet treated it like a much bigger deal. So why would 50 Cent avoid Meek Mill in a Netflix documentary? Because that audio was never confirmed as authentic. Including unverified, explicit material in a mainstream release is essentially inviting legal trouble. Meek is still active, still well-connected, and definitely not someone you casually name drop without airtight backing. He has money, a legal team, and a public profile where one wrong allegation can turn into a lawsuit very quickly. From a business standpoint, it makes sense. If something can't be proven cleanly, a documentary isn't going to gamble an entire release on it. If it isn't airtight, you don't touch it. Now let's talk about Justin Bieber, because this is a different lane entirely. People don't bring Justin up as if he's part of the problem. They bring him up because he was young around powerful adults, and some of the old clips still make viewers uncomfortable. There's footage of Diddy talking about having Justin around for a period of time when Justin was a teenager. And people read Justin's body language in those moments as if he didn't feel fully at ease. So why wouldn't the documentary lean into Justin's story? Because it instantly becomes much heavier. When someone was underage at the time, it stops being celebrity drama and starts touching on far more serious territory. And if that person doesn't want to revisit those moments publicly, pushing the issue can come across as exploitative. There's also been discussion about paparazzi pressing Justin for a reaction, which only adds another layer of sensitivity to the situation.
Y'all, paparazzi spoke to Bieber, and all he had to say recently was that, "Don't ask me about that man ever. Some things I moved on from for my own peace. What's in that documentary? Let's just say people are finally waking up." He also goes on to say, "I was a kid, I didn't know anything, I don't ever want to talk about that."
The way people describe Justin's response is essentially a hard boundary. Don't ask me about that. I've moved on from my peace. I was a kid, I didn't understand what was happening, and I don't want to relive it. Whether every word of that quote is exact or not, the message is clear. Justin doesn't want that chapter pulled back into the spotlight. So if 50 Cent kept Justin out of the documentary, many people see that as the most human decision possible. Dragging a grown man's childhood into a streaming headline cycle isn't exposure, it's reopening something he's clearly trying to leave behind. Justin has a family now and a life he's building. He doesn't need his past turned into content or replayed like entertainment for the world to dissect. That's why, if he was left out, many viewers interpret it as a respectful choice, not turning someone's childhood into a segment just to make the documentary hit harder. Next up is Usher, and people treat his story as an earlier chapter of the same conversation. Long before Justin, Usher was the young star everyone points to. The public narrative is that he was around Diddy as a teenager, in those industry camp environments people still talk about. Online, he's framed not as a villain, but as someone who was young in a system run by older, more powerful figures. Over the years, Usher has made comments that fans interpret as hints, suggestions that he saw things he can't unsee, experiences that changed how he moved afterward. He never spells it out, but he said enough for people to read between the lines. The conversation gets even more uncomfortable when people connect him to Justin's early career, pointing out that Usher helped open doors and introduce Justin into industry spaces. Some fans frame that as a decision he may now look back on differently, given what's being discussed today. So why would a Netflix documentary avoid going deep on Usher? For the same reason it would avoid Justin. This is sensitive territory, and without verified details or the person's willingness to revisit it publicly, it can quickly slide into exploitation. Katt Williams' warnings about what the industry can do to young talent fit the broader theme people are talking about: gifted kids getting pulled into situations that leave lasting damage. But that's not something a mainstream documentary can even imply without solid backing. You'll also hear claims that an Usher segment was removed because it was too dark to include. That's not something that can be stated as fact, but it explains the logic fans use. When a story involves a young star's teenage years and heavy implications, platforms become extremely cautious. Usher has a long career, a family, and a legacy. Pulling him back into this conversation in a graphic or speculative way would trigger a massive media storm, and that's exactly the kind of blowback producers try to avoid. So if 50 left him out, many see it as the safest call, not feeding the internet a new target when the subject is already volatile. Now we get to the name people treat as the most important on the list: Clive Davis. Most viewers don't recognize his name the way they recognize artists, but in the music business, he's been around forever. He's the kind of executive with decades of influence and connections. That's why people call him a gatekeeper, not because he's a public-facing celebrity, but because he's been linked to major careers and major industry decisions over a long stretch of time. Some people go further and suggest that Diddy couldn't move without Clive's blessing. That's an opinion, not a provable fact, but it illustrates the point they're making. They believe the real power isn't always the artist everyone sees. It's the system behind the artist. Fans point to Clive's long history. his relationships across labels and media, and how certain figures appear protected by influence alone. They tie this back to Katt's worker versus boss, framing the idea that the public focuses on the face while the real power stays off screen. So why would a documentary avoid naming Clive Davis? Because once you start pointing at legacy power figures, it stops being just controversy and becomes corporate risk. If every line isn't backed by airtight proof, it's the fastest way to get a project challenged, delayed, or softened before it even reaches the audience. That's why people online boil it down to one word: fear. A cleaner word is liability. Many argue that if a Netflix documentary went directly at a legacy power figure like that, the rollout wouldn't survive, not because of some movie-style conspiracy, but because big platforms, big partners, and big networks don't like unpredictable heat. When the risk gets too high, promotion gets quiet, distribution gets complicated, and projects get softened or stalled. That's why some believe 50 left Clive out not to be polite, but because naming him would have turned the entire documentary into a corporate liability fight before it ever had a chance to breathe. In that framing, Clive becomes the biggest omission on the list. People argue that the public keeps focusing on the headline name, while the larger structure behind the scenes remains untouched. The idea that Clive created the system is opinion, not fact, but it explains what people mean when they say taking down one figure doesn't matter if the power network behind them stays protected. So there you have it. The 7 names people believe were either left out or handled lightly in the Netflix Diddy documentary. Katt Williams warned that something like this was coming, that some things would surface, but the biggest names would remain harder to touch. From Snoop Dogg to Clive Davis, these are the figures people point to when they talk about how deep the protection goes. If you want more breakdowns on how these stories get shaped, what gets emphasized, what gets avoided, and why certain narratives make it to air while others don't, check out Mike Tripp. He covers the media mechanics behind these stories better than most. Now I want to hear from you. Which name do you think should have been addressed directly in the documentary? And do you think 50 made the right call keeping it clean, or should he have gone all in regardless of the consequences? Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.